everyone, welcome back to another new edition of Windows and Current Affairs. And today in Windows and Current Affairs, a very special events. The preparations for the ram-headed Sphinx festivity are taking place. Of course, the Ministry of Tourism is preparing for the festivities for ram-headed Sphinx. We're going to be talking about that in detail because the Prime Minister is following up from Luxor the excited preparations for the inauguration of the ram-headed Sphinx Road and a bunch of other touristic projects. Of course, they are about to be inaugurated. Today we're going to be talking about that particular event and the ram-headed Sphinx Road in particular because it's a huge event. We're very delighted to be having with us Ms. Rana Ihab. She is a heritage researcher as usual. Good evening, Ms. Ihab.
Good evening.
Excuse me. Let us first talk about that particular event. Just give us a definition or an elaboration over the importance of the ram-headed Sphinx. What is the ram-headed Sphinx road?
This is actually a venue connect between the Luxor and the Karnak temple. It's a long miles between the both temples. It's used from the ancient Egyptian time as a festival route, especially religious festivals. So the king take her way from his way from this place, from the temple of El Karnak to the temple of Luxor, and the opposite of this. And this is actually started from the first time, from the time of a Queen Hatshepsut. So this is to memorize the statues of God Amun and to adorate for him and those things. So the importance of this place, all the kings from the Queen Hatshepsut till the end of the Greek-Roman period, all the kings, they want to add to this avenue. So between the Sphinx or the ram-headed Sphinx, you will find a statue. So this is a statues for the kings as a kind of protection. So the god Amun, the big Sphinx, is protect this king between his legs. This is something amazing. So we can find Queen Hatshepsut, we can find also Ramses II, we can find the Nekhteneb I. So all those kings. Actually, the project of reconnect the temple of Luxor and temple of El Karnak, it's take place in the 2011. And from all of this time, they preparing what will happen in this, how we will connect the two temples together, and also how we can make this possible to feel like what ancient Egyptian felt in that time. So the restoration itself of the ram-headed Sphinx has taken a longer process. Some of them is completely destroyed, so we need to rearrange them or restore all of these Sphinx. So it's take very, very hard work. And actually we have 4 ram-headed here, which is around the obelisk and Tahrir Square. So this is amazing. So the people who cannot travel to Luxor, they can find those ram-headed. Actually,
in Tahrir Square?
Yes, 4 of them in Tahrir Square. On the they transfer them from the Luxor temple to the Tahrir Square to give the new shape of a Tahrir Square and do stuff. And actually, the archaeologists has mentioned it may be in the ancient time we have around 1,200 ram-headed between the temple of Karnak and temple of Luxor. And for that reason, it's played a very important role in the religious and the festivals in ancient Egypt. So maybe we can feel how the ancient Egyptian doing their festivals in that time.
To our knowledge, that particular avenue is about 2.7 kilometers, and it starts from Al Karnak north and all the way down to the Temple of Mut. And it goes also to Luxor in the south. So it's quite long. It's like a corridor of stones. That is surrounded by the statues of ram-headed sphinx, which is really beautiful.
Yes, this is actually something can be in the ancient Egyptian imagination. As I mentioned, this is a religious festival. So according to the religious festival, it could be something very amazing, something cannot be in any other temple. So for that reason, the temple of Karnak and temple of Luxor is connected to each other. I wanted to, during my festival, I wanted to travel or going from temple of Luxor to temple of Karnak to celebrate with the statues and with the people, to doing those things is related to the festival and this stuff. So this is amazing. We cannot find in any temple, even in Egypt again, something like that. So for that reason, the government doing its best to make a celebration of this venue is very huge and very important. Actually, the meaning of the Sphinx itself is completely changed in that period. So if we understand what is the meaning of the Sphinx from the Old Kingdom and Middle Kingdom, it's a kind of a change, because this is a ram head. The Sphinx we know, like the Sphinx in Giza, for example. So it's with a lion body and human head. So why is that? Because the power in the lion body and the mind and the thinking in the human head. So the idea was completely changed when I make it as a ram head. So a ram head is a symbol for a god Amun, which is amazing for this time.
Of course, as we all know, that the Prime Minister is supervising and is touring and taking quite a comprehensive look over the renovations and the restoration of that temple and the avenue in its own right. He is accompanied by the Minister of Tourism and a bunch of other officials. But there are other points. There are other, elements that are also involved in that particular process of restoration. There are youth who are also who offer to give a hand, and they were observed by the Minister of Tourism and the Prime Minister. And also there are other people, other plans, other sectors that are involved in that restoration plan. If you like to elaborate.
Yes, actually the workers or the conservators, the restorators who work on this processing is they are very clever to make something amazing like that, because I didn't care about those things from a long time ago. So the process itself needs a lot of effort to do, which is doing by the students, and this is something amazing. Actually, this is the restoring thing is not only the venue of this of the ram head sphinx, but also the columns, the decoration of the temple, everything. They wanted to repack it for the original colors. So this is something amazing, because the discovering of the removing those kinds of chemical things that grow up on the colors of the temple or the inscriptions. Before 5 or 7 years ago, we imagined that if we remove this black layer, we will remove also the colors behind it. But actually, because of the researchers and the people who are doing their masters, they discovered a way to remove this black layer without affecting on the original colors. So this is something amazing. We discovering the original colors of the ancient Egyptian. This is a kind of bacteria growing up on the colors. So we removed that. So the original colors of the temple is showing up. So it's something amazing for our eyes. We didn't see from a long times ago, and if we see it in particular objects, in particular particular walls, in particular ceilings. So entering the Karnak and Luxor temple and feeling the color like in ancient Egypt, this is a really amazing work.
Of course. But also during the process of restoration, and there was an excavation, and some other pieces were discovered, some pieces of the Sphinx.
Yes.
But to our knowledge, I can see here where the excavation was taking place, and some other pieces of
Yes, actually, all the discovering, when doing excavation, we discovering a lot of things, maybe related to the kings who built on the temples, because the temples is not only for a one, it's started up by a one, but all the kings after him added sometimes obelisks, sometimes they added statues, sometimes they added the pylons, and many different other things. So during our restoration, maybe we will find a statue for one of the kings, a statue for one of the gods, and actually one of the most amazing things we discovered in El Karnak is something called calicidria, or a water clock. So this is discovering for the first time as a water clock, how the ancient Egyptian managed the time in the ancient things. So this water clock is decorated with stars, decorated with planets from our universe and from our Milky Way. So and inside this water clock we have holes. So this is how the ancient Egyptian start to measure time. So this is, we can consider that as the first clock in all the world. So amazing, a very amazing stuff we can find during the excavation. Even the scenes in the temple, which is decorated the temples itself. So sometimes we do a lot of researches about that, but sometimes we can connect words to words, and we discovered something in the ancient Egyptian belief that we cannot know how they arrived to this point of knowledge. So this is kind of amazing. We're doing excavation every day. So every day we have something new discovered about ancient Egypt.
Of course, there are excavations every day, but that particular one is very, very special because of the place and the location, because it's right in the center of heritage, right in the center of the epic and pinnacle of history, which is El Karnak and Luxor, and it is located and surrounded by other marvelous pieces of history and temples, and also because of the story of that particular avenue and the significance, like you said, for the ram-headed Sphinx, that very, very, very long path that is supposed to take, possibly could be taking queens or kings escorted by their entourage or something.
Yes. As I mentioned, so this is something religious, and the Egyptian people is totally religious people. So they wanted to do everything important for their life in general, for their another life. So they doing these things in perfect way. So Luxor and Karnak temple taking a very important role in the old time, because they are very massive. They have a lot of things related to the religious. Actually, when we talk about the religious itself, there is a lot of scenes we cannot translate till this moment. Why? Because it's a sacred thing. So they didn't want all the people can read it. So the one who is read it, the one who is a very religious, or the one who can understand all of that. So for that reason, this place is very important. So actually, because Egypt is full of monuments everywhere, not only the between Luxor and temple, we're talking about Luxor city in general. We have amazing places in Luxor, like Deir al-Bahri of temple of Queen Hatshepsut, and also we have the temple of Medinat Habu, and we have the Valley of Kings, the Valley of Queens. All of these full of important things. Imagine all the kings at the time, they doing their effort to add to the Luxor temple, even in their period or after that or before it, they wanted to add something amazing for this avenue. So for that reason, this avenue taking a very important place in their life, in particular, we can say in the New Kingdom. So in the New Kingdom, all of those people take this important cause of the religious. They doing their amazing temples, they doing their amazing tombs, but the Luxor and Karnak still have in the top, or still in the top of the list.
They have the lead in that. Well, we're going to go to a short break and we'll come to continue this very interesting talk after the short break, so stay with us. Welcome back, and as we earlier said, we were talking about Egypt as a jewel that is also, that is every day becoming more beautiful than the other, and that is glittering and shining every day. As history passes, it never fades. And as we talk about Egypt, we also talk about the everyday excavations. We were talking about the ram-headed Sphinx avenue and the preparations for that are going to be not less beautiful than the Golden Parade, and the government and the Ministry of Tourism together with the Prime Minister is inspecting all the preparations, and some other officials and sectors, and the governor of Luxor and all that. A lot of work is being done for Egypt to have a complete makeover, just to reflect its beauty.
Yes, exactly.
Not like an ugly woman having a makeover, but like a beautiful woman just polishing the dust and reflecting its beauty. Yes. We talked about the ram-headed Sphinx Avenue, and of course when people see me as an Egyptian, not a foreigner, even me as an Egyptian, when I used to see it when I was little, and I saw that very long path with the ram-headed Sphinx and the stories behind, and in movies and everywhere. Why did they use that particular gesture or that particular idea as the ram-headed Sphinx?
Actually, because in the first place, this is a shape of Amun. This is the way they worship to the god Amun. So they take actually this shape because the ram-headed is actually changed by time. So sometimes we found the ram-headed even in the Middle Kingdom or in the Old Kingdom, the horns of the ram-headed of the ram itself is completely changed. So so the horns in the Old and in the Middle Kingdom, it's a kind of short. So it becoming the New Kingdom, it's a kind of long. So this is telling us how the scientific skeleton of the animals in this time was changed, which is mean the ancient Egyptian history is taking a very long time. So actually the ram-headed also is calling, we have a Khunom who is the god who is opening the sources of the Nile River, because if we're talking about Luxor and Aswan, so this is at the end of Egypt and the first and second cataract. So they actually taking this shape because maybe he is the one who's responsible for the opening of the Nile and giving the source of the life. So also all of these ideas is connected to each other. But what make this amazing? So we can compare all of these shapes with now the rams now is completely changed, or it's still in its way. So all of these taking a part in changing our mind, how the ancient Egyptian live, how they connected with their environments, the environments around them, are they taking caring of any tiny details. So the artist who doing this sculpture or doing this scene or anything of those stuff, actually he is not copy what happened before him or what the artist doing before him. So for that reason, the Egyptian artist, ancient Egyptian artist, is the most clever one for showing the details, and he telling us what is changed from the old time till this moment.
Okay, what other projects? They said that there are other important projects that were taken and were inspected that are also related to that particular topic. Of course, we are expecting a huge, glamorous inauguration. How do you expect it?
Actually, I expected that something very amazing. It will be maybe something like the parade of the mummies. Why? Because actually this is a plan from 2011, as I mentioned. So if they're working hard to show all of these great projects for all the people, so for sure they're working in each detail for this venue. How they made it. I remember from 3 years ago, maybe, or 4 years ago, they start to work how they moving the route of the cars walk on or drive on, how they will change the plan of Luxor itself to connect the Luxor and the Karnak temple. So it's something amazing. So the Prime Minister by himself showing what happened, taking care of all the preparation, which is mean, God willing, it will be something amazing. We cannot imagine, but we are waiting for this.
The restoration process is a very important process and critical at the same time. Sometimes it is prone to some criticism. Some experts would just warn of the pros and cons of the wrong restoration process and the renovation also. And they warned very clear that if you do not do it in a way that comply with the best interest of the article in your hand itself, it is going to be a great damage to the pieces. Let's talk about the restoration process of that particular process of the pieces that we're talking about at Ma'bad al-Karnak or the Temple of Karnak. Of course, they said that the restoration process is being taken according to the state of the pieces in their hands, and that also comply with the international standards.
Yes.
So how is that being taken? How is that being regulated in the place? Is it totally 100% Egyptian, or is it with the collaboration of people from UNESCO, or?
Actually, the process of conservation itself is very wide, and it have a lot of definition behind it. For example, we have a conservation, we have a restoration, we have reconstruction.
What is the difference? I know, of course, the verbal meaning between restoration and conservation, but in that sense of heritage, what is the what is the process of conservation and what is the process of restoration?
Actually, the process of conservation, that means this is building.
I leave it as it is, I don't touch it?
The building itself is completely destroyed, and I add a new objects from myself, the new object.
That is restoration.
This is a conservation. Restoration, I maybe complete the building by the materials is actually used in that. So maybe I have some fallen stones, I take these stones and I bought it in its way. Reconstruction, it has the same idea of the difference between them is very, very scientific thing and very academic thing. So
but it's very important.
It's very, very important.
If I do something that is, if I do restoration to an article that I'm supposed to conserve it, so what is going to happen?
Actually, this is back to the standards of the universal standards.
What if I get? What if I get confused or?
Actually, this can be change the meaning of heritage. It can be change the feeling you're feeling about this
and
object.
the style.
Yes, exactly. For example, if I take a place and it's completely destroyed, and I actually rebuilt it again. So I cannot feel the same wave of the historical things because it's completely something new. So where is the soul of the heritage itself? It's not here. So for example, sometimes we have complete damage places. Actually, we didn't complete it. Why? Because it's the place or the historical thing of this place is as it. So after a long time, when I see this place, what happened to this place, I start to telling the story of the place. So it's considered the damage has become a part from the heritage of the place. Of the story of this place. So the importance here is that, so for example, in the mosque of Sultan Hassan, we have the pumps of the Napoleon army when it's in Egypt. So the pumps actually, it's very, very clear in the walls of Sultan Hassan. Why we didn't restore it? Because now it's a heritage telling us how when the French people come to Egypt, what they doing, they throw these pumps on the Egyptian people. So this is coming on this building. So this pump now is telling us a story from a long time ago what happened to this place. So this is always the idea of the difference between restoration and reconstruction and conservation of the place. Even I'm working on the object itself. So this is need a very specific people for this work, and actually it's also have different departments. So the people who work with the organic things is different from the people who work on non-organic things. So it's completely different because, for example, the ram head sphinx in the avenue of the avenue of Karnak or Luxor temple, it's a kind of non-organic thing. So the people who work on it, and this is ram-headed, is made from sandstone. So this is sandstone is affected by weather, by also those things from the cars, from the factories, the smoke.
We're talking about Sphinx?
Yes. So so it can affect on the color itself of the ram-headed. So this is something very sensitive. How I can protect it in the first place, how I can restore those things. It's something very easily to broke in the statues is the head, because the neck is very weak. So maybe we can find most of the statues without a head. Why? Because it's easily to broke with them, because it's an open place. So we have Karnak. It's also it's a temple, but inside it we have an open museum, which is amazing. So so this is something affected by weather. This is here from thousands of years ago. So how I can put this head again without happened any damage? So I need all the time to follow what happened to this statues. If any kind of damage, maybe I cannot imagine at that time what will happen to these statues. Even we have rains or bad weather, what will happen to them? So this is a very complicated process. So for that reason, the Minister Khalid Al-Anani always thanking the people who work on that, because he actually know how this work is very, very, very hard.
This is about the statues, but what about the inscriptions? Because there are intricate details. There are the inscriptions, there are the drawings, there are the colors, there is the stones, there is sometimes the accessories.
Yeah, all of them, as I mentioned. So
we can apply that on the inscriptions, because how many stories have we heard about inscriptions over stones that were restored or conserved in a wrong way, and it was a complete mistake.
Actually, if we can follow the process of the transferring the mummies from the Egyptian museum to the Civilization Museum, actually it's take around 1 year to prepare each mummy. So this is a very long thing.
So you're talking about the corpse?
Yes, exactly. So if I taking this mummies directly from the closed boxes to the air, it can be transferred to completely powder thing. So the process itself is very, very sensitive. I need to watch everything. So for that reason, when we when we work on the inscription, when we work on the colors, as I mentioned before, with the colors, before 5 years ago, we cannot imagine that we can moving these black layers from the temples. But now we discovered a new way to remove this kind of bacteria from the colors, so the original colors has appeared from the
and do you use colors, new colors?
We didn't use the colors. Actually, the colors is hidden behind a black a complete black layer. So we thought this black layer is a kind of chemical things affected from the colors with each other. But actually no, it's only a kind of bacteria growing up on these the original colors. So the researchers discovered a new way to remove only the black layer on those colors. So now this is working. This is also from the projects. God willing, it will be also in the opening of the venue of the Ram Hadad. So we can see Luxor temple with a kind of different thing. We can see a different ceiling, different walls, because the original colors now has appeared, the red, the blue one. And actually, the ancient Egyptian, when they use a blue one, they use for a reason. When they use a red one, they use for a reason. But when we're talking about the restoring or restoration of the inscriptions itself, actually it's not only need a conservator, it sometimes need also an Egyptologist if we're talking about the inscription in hieroglyphs. Why? Because the inscription, maybe I can guess the letter here. Where is this letter? What is this letter? So the conservators, they only working with the chemical things and how they restore it. What is the things according to the articles of UNESCO? Or
we always see the brush.
Yes.
And I wonder what would the little tiny brush do to something huge?
This is very important when to not damage anything. Maybe when I'm removing the dust from those things, I can find a small pieces of jewelry, of a small pieces of gold or beads or something. So when I use this little brush to take care of any details, this can be. Maybe sometimes we can find a kind of a precious material. Maybe we have this inscription on the walls, so it's cinq relief. So this cinq relief we're filling up with the colors, sometimes with the precious material, like carnelian, for example. So it's very, very important. The carnelian, one of the most precious materials now. So when they are removing the brush, the tiny brush, maybe they can find a small, very, very small and tiny pieces. Maybe when I use this big brush for the big things, when I doing this, I filling some pieces from the wall itself. So for this reason, they use this tiny kind of brush.
And other tools at the same time. But also, you were talking about inscriptions. So inscriptions, you're supposed to know the language? Or
Yes.
you have to be professional?
Actually, if you study Egyptology,
professional with restoring and conserving.
The people who work on the restoration, they didn't have all of this knowledge to know what is the inscription, because if they want to help, they go into Egyptologist. So the Egyptologist who is knowing about the ancient Egyptian languages with its scripts. Actually, something wrong happened that we said hieroglyphic is an ancient Egyptian language. This is completely wrong. It's called ancient Egyptian language, have many scripts like hieroglyphic, hieratic, demotic, kind of Coptic. So
those are dialects or different languages?
Okay, this is a different script. Some people mentioned because of demotic have another grammar and another kind of words, so we can call the demotic and Coptic a language. But hieroglyphic and hieratic, it's only a language with different scripts. That's it. So this was different scripts.
Different scripts. Again, we're going to go to a short break and we'll come to continue this very interesting talk, so stay with us. Welcome back, and as we all know, we were talking to our sweet, beautiful guest here in the studio, Ms. Rana Ihab. She's a heritage researcher, and she was talking about something very interesting. In fact, she was talking about the restoration of inscriptions over walls and over stones and over pieces, very, very precious pieces in ancient history, which is very important. Should we know the language to be able to conserve and restore those pieces, or we should only require professionalism and that's it? This is the question. We were talking about that.
Yes. If I'm doing something related to a papyrus, for example, so the inscription in papyrus is a different thing from the inscription in the walls.
Of course.
It's different from the inscription.
Way much difficult in papyrus.
Because it's a kind, maybe this papyrus we found it's ruled. So when I opened it, yes, when I open it directly, it's sometimes returning to something prick in our hands. So I have a very, very specific way to open it. So sometimes when I'm missing some letters or some sentences or some words, how we can do this? This is now the rule of the Egyptologists who work on that. So the process itself, they complete each other. The workers on in the archaeology field, they complete each other. So the one who working on the conservation, he only opened this papyrus for us. The rule of Egyptologists come after this one. So he started to translate the words, the sentences to the known words to our languages. So when I found something missed, how I can conserve it? Maybe some conservators, when those things or those stuff which is broke from the papyrus itself, the conservator doing his best to restore those things. But if we cannot restore this and it's damaged forever, how I can do or how I can translate all of these papyrus? This is the rule of Egyptologists. So he starts to comparing the sentences with a kind of other sentences we have, because sometimes we have a formula in the Egyptian languages. It's never changed. So we can compare this with each other. Sometimes we can complete the sentences from our mind that depend on the text itself. So maybe sometimes the text it's a literature text. So we can imagine the end of the story. We can doing a suppose for the story, and sometimes it's a religious, and this is the most easiest one for the Egyptologists, because actually all the religious inscription is repeated. So I can suggest, or I can know what exactly happened on these. So, and actually this is a very important thing that the scientists from the old time left it for us. So this is for a papyrus, and also we have a kind of ostraca, because a papyrus is very hard process to do a papyrus for all the people. So this is something impossible. So they are sometimes writing in ostraca. The shards of pottery, they wrote on the stones, they wrote in the bones. So anything ancient Egyptian can write what they doing this inscriptions of it.
I guess we should dedicate a whole episode for types of inscriptions, because it's very important. It would lead to another whole new level of history. But unfortunately, we ran out of time. Thank you very, very much, Rana Ihab. You are a heritage researcher and more. Thank you so much. And all the best of luck to you. And I guess with this, we come to the end of this edition of Windows and Current Affairs. Many thanks to all of you. Until we see you again next week, that's a goodbye.